from the blackest corners of your mind, they call, pulling you deep into shadow, twisting your senses, keeping you from sleep. It's time to face your darkest fears. This is Tales to Terrify. Good evening, children of the night, and welcome. We're exactly 1 week out from All Hallows Eve. Quite a treat that it falls on Friday this year. And even better, we've got a host of horrors to stuff in your pillowcase. The winners of our special Halloween flash fiction contest. Make sure you tune in next week for that. Before we dive into our stories, we have two terrifically twisted individuals I want to extend our heartfelt thanks to. The newest members of our murderous menagerie on Patreon, Tamara Tudor and Adam Newnham. Thank you from the bottom of our black and shriveled hearts, Tamara and Adam. There are no words to express how much we appreciate the support, at least none that we can form with a primitive human tongue. As always, if you'd like to become a supporter of our show, you can get access to ad-free episodes, bonus content, and even a direct line to the authors and narrators through our Discord. Plus, our undying admiration has to count for something, right? Visit patreon.com/Tales to Terrify to see what you're missing. For tonight, though, we have one tale for you, which comes to us from C.W. Stevenson. A native of San Antonio, Texas, C.W. Clint Stevenson resides there with his wife, sons, and their retinue of furry companions. Clint's work can be found in Summer of Sci-Fi and Fantasy, Volume 4, Chthonic Matter Quarterly, and Monster Fight at the OK Corral, Volume 1. His debut short story collection, Lost Lambs, Tales of Darkness, is set to release August 2026, published by Bainham Books Press. Children of the Night, join me for C.W. Stevenson's Goatsucker, a Tales to Terrify original.
Graham stood outside in her night dress as dawn began to break. The bottom of her dress was stained with red dirt. Her hands, too, were red, covered in blood. Rushing out the door, Curtis jumped from the deck and ran for his grandmother. The Hircine odor of goats filled his nostrils. When he reached her, Graham was still staring off into the distance. There was nothing but fields of maize, rocks, cedar, and oak trees to be seen across a soft blue horizon layered with violet. Her eyes seemed to see beyond that, at a memory she could no longer place. The look had become too familiar. 2 goats lay still beside the tool shed, bloated tongues hanging loose at the corner of their mouths, lifeless eyes staring wide at nothing. Graham didn't seem to care about the dead livestock. Her gaze was glued toward the Pruitt brothers' farm, their closest neighbor. Curtis studied his grandmother's face. Wrinkles had replaced a beautiful woman he had seen through dozens of black and white photos pressed into family scrapbooks. Her thick mane of raven black hair had turned a wispy gray. The scab on her forearm from when she'd fallen last week had come open. "Graham?" Curtis began slowly. He took a step closer so she'd notice him in her peripherals, then worked his way around until he was standing directly in front of her. "You all right?" "I'm cold," she said absent-mindedly. It was the Texas Hill Country in midsummer. It was hot as hell. He put a hand on her shoulder. "Let's get you inside." He guided her up the back porch steps, then proceeded to lead her inside until they were at the kitchen table. She sat down at her usual spot beside the window, gazing down at the floral designs on the same placemats she'd owned for 40 years. Curtis brought her a cup of hot tea and made one for himself. An Englishwoman, having married Curtis's grandfather during World War II, a daily cup of tea was a necessity. He sat across from her as they sipped their drinks. All in all, she appeared less confused and more frustrated at what had transpired. "How long was I outside for?" "An hour, maybe. I got up to shower and the back screen door wasn't cracked open then." He passed a wet rag over for her bloody hands. "Thank you, dearie." She began to sniffle. "Oh, bloody hell." "It's okay, Graham. Happens to the best of us." She looked down at her hands, her dress. "Filthy, just filthy." She inspected her forearm, then the outrageous amount of blood covering her hands. "It's not from the arm. There's 2 goats outside on the ground. I think something got after 'em. You must have placed your hands on one." She scoffed. Using the rag, she began to clean the blood from her skin. "Can't imagine why'd I do such a thing. You must think me mad." She shook her head. "Mad, Alice. Falling deep down the rabbit hole." Alzheimer's had struck her fast and hard. Uncle Cleve, his only family still breathing aside from Graham, had put her in the nursing home right after the first fall. He hadn't said a damn thing, just loaded Graham up with some clothes and her books, and that was that. She'd been there a week before Curtis opted to care for her. He would have opted to give Cleve a black eye if his uncle could have gotten his fat ass off the sofa. He'd either eat or drink himself into an early grave. All things considered, that sat well enough with Curtis. Cleve had always treated his mother like trash. The woman he looked at now was far from mad, far from deserving to be treated poorly. After his folks had spun out of control on the highway, leaving Curtis an orphan, it was Graham who'd taken him in. It was only right that he take her in. "At least you have a good excuse. People around here do crazier and shit things with half a bottle of Southern Comfort," he told her. She smiled. "True, things get rather fuzzy sometimes. I woke up, had a glass of water, then the next thing I know, you're taking me back indoors. You didn't see what happened to the goats?" "No, love." Curtis took a sip of tea and got to his feet. "Well, suppose I better go see about them goats." "I think I'll have a lie down." "Good thinking. I'll be in to check on you later." "Oh, don't you go worrying about your old Graham. She's fit as can be." Back outside, Curtis approached the goats. Flies were buzzing around the vicinity. Already, a line of ants trailed up the rear back leg of the nearest goat, over its hoof, dew-claw, until he found them swarming around the teats and udder. They'd been dead for some time. Crouching beside them for his post-mortem examination, Curtis inspected them closer. Just what had killed them? Coyotes. They were the usual suspects. He heard packs of them enough time in the night lately that he'd already decided that a trip to the pasture with a dying rabbit call and his hunting rifle was in the cards. The occasional bobcat wandering the property was a possibility. Even rarer than that, A damn mountain lion. But big cats would have hauled them up a tree someplace, leaving the remains of their kill dangling in the branches for a later meal. What got at y'all, poor bastards? Curtis looked at the obvious, taking notice of the splotches of red on their necks. He leaned in closer for a better look at the goat without ants crawling on its body. He parted a tuft of bloody fur on the side of its neck. He looked at the spot in astonishment. 2 puncture marks, as if a vampire had its way with them. Their shriveled bodies told him that whatever it was had indeed drained the blood from their corpses. Just then, the sound of Juan's truck rounded the bend and stopped in front of his house. The truck was pulling a hay trailer. Curtis had forgotten he was going to stop by for the bales of hay in the barn. Lighting a cigarette as he exited the truck, Juan let loose a plume of smoke and walked over to Curtis. "Dead goats?" he asked. Trying to figure out what the hell could have done this." Juan's eyes went wide when he spotted the puncture wounds. He pointed at them, then went into a violent coughing fit. "The chupacabra!" he managed to fit between a wheeze. Curtis patted him on the back as Juan fought to catch his breath. "What the hell does that mean?" he asked. "Goat sucker." "Put out that damn cigarette before we start hauling hay." The last thing he needed was the barn going up in flames after the morning he'd had thus far. Juan held his hands up. Okay, you're the boss." He flicked the cigarette outside the barn doors. Curtis gave Juan a stern look that caused him to dig the heel of his boot into the cigarette, ripping it to pieces. "Happy now, Jefe?" Together they loaded the bales of hay onto Juan's trailer, piling the square bales on top of another until the barn was empty. The trailer was chock full. The job finished, they celebrated with a cold beer and rested their weary backs against the barn. "I'm thinking it was Mo and Ethan Pruitt," Curtis said, aiming the end of his beer at the dead goats. "Weren't no chupacabra." "Them 2 pendejos? You best wish it was them. When did you find the goats?" "Graham found them early this morning. Found her looking out at nothing at all, standing there, blood on her hands. She must have touched them." Juan raised an eyebrow. "You think it was your grandmother?" "You saw the punctures. How could someone in her condition manage that?" A cloud of dust appeared down the road parallel to the house. Mo and Ethan Pruitt stared them down as they drove toward their farm. Ethan tipped his hat with a sarcastic grin, showing how many yellow-stained teeth remained to him. Mo, driving, flipped them the bird. "Hijos de putas," Juan growled. There'd always been bad blood between the 2 families, mostly, thanks to Uncle Cleve, not upholding the end of a deal when it came to work, a bet, or his word. Curtis was an extension of his uncle to them, not to be trusted. The feeling was mutual. The brothers did all right with their spread, a field of this or that, and goats of their own. Neither were married. They preferred the company of their homemade moonshine. As they flew down the road, the vehicle swerved. "Drunk as skunks already." Curtis shook his head. "It ain't even noon yet. One of these days, they're going to hit one of them big oaks on the side of the road on their way home. Or worse, hit someone else." By no means did he like the brothers, but it'd be a damn shame to see them end up dead like that, like his folks. "Think I'll have a word with them tonight," said Curtis. "Need some help?" Juan was just being polite. "I can handle it. Wouldn't be the first time they'd pestered my animals. Had 5 taken off the property last year. Boot prints led straight to their place. I let that one go on account of moving Graham in at the time. Ain't happening again." "Take that rifle," Juan suggested. Curtis frowned. "I'm pissed, but I ain't that pissed." It's not for them, amigo. It's in case it weren't them. All that day, Curtis threw junk from the barn onto a burn pile at the southernmost end of the property, lined by a rock fence that had marked the boundary since before his great-grandfather was born. As sixth-generation Texans, they'd occupied this region of the Texas Hill Country for a long, long time. Chupacabra, Curtis scoffed. He'd heard tale of it before. Hell, probably from Juan. It was just a story. Curtis dragged the goats from the truck to the burn pile one at a time by their hind legs and tossed them onto the fire. He watched as their fur burned away and skin blistered, soon leaving nothing but blackened bones. Just a story. A series of hoots and hollers caught his attention. Curtis turned in the direction of the Pruitts' farm and glared. Most likely they were still drunk. He gazed upward. It was almost dusk. Checking in on Graham, he found her in a rocking chair watching television. The Searchers was playing. John Wayne had just come upon his brother's property in flames, victim to a Comanche raiding party. "The Duke keeping you company?" Graham smiled, placing a hand to her lips as she hiccuped. Then again. Curtis spotted a bottle of wild turkey on the end table beside the rocking chair. He let loose a deep sigh. Was the whole country drunk but him? "You, Ethan, and Mo Pruitt? You give any of that bottle to the chickens out back?" He wouldn't be surprised. She hiccuped again and waved a hand simultaneously. "When you're my age, you can do as you damn well please. I'll do the same, I thank you." With that, she unscrewed the cap and poured more into her cup of steaming tea. "Do me a favor and take it easy. Remember what happened this morning?" She picked up the remote control and held it up as if she were threatening to throw it. She was a well-known thrower. Curtis, his father, grandfather, uncle, all were casualties of her deadly aim with what was in reach when she was in a mood. "I'm old and have Alzheimer's. Don't tell me to take it easy." "That sounds like the wild turkey talking." "It's going to do more than some talking if you don't leave me be with the Duke." "Have it your way." She didn't see him sneak around and snatch away the bottle. Making his way across the pasture in the dark wasn't the wisest of options, not with a third of wild turkey in him as he stepped around cactus plants and over rocks. Liquid courage would help get him across, though, and if he got popped in the jaw really good, at least he wouldn't feel much. He rubbed his eyes as a pair of red orbs looked down on him from the ridge ahead, but when he shined his light toward the glowing eyes, there was nothing there. Curtis wished then he would have brought the rifle, which was currently lying on the back seat of his truck. He hadn't had much of a plan, just scare the shit out of the Pruitt brothers and put a stop to them messing with his herd. But if it wasn't them who killed his animals, then he would have at least liked the opportunity to get off a shot or 10 at a coyote if he ran into one on the way. Too late now. He'd already gone a few hundred yards. He sure as hell wasn't going to waste his time turning around now for something he probably wouldn't need anyways. Patience was not a quality Curtis claimed to possess, even sober. Nope. He would soldier onward. He scanned the area around him. Something seemed off. His mind dwelled on the red eyes that had appeared, then vanished. His eyes darted from left to right. The crickets and cicadas had quit singing. The eerie silence increased his paranoia. The disturbing feeling of being watched filled him with dread. Why'd you have to go and drink so much? From the corner of his eye, something moved. He jerked around and pointed his flashlight at the strange thing that was stalking him. From within a cluster of trees, the large red glowing eyes from the ridge stared at him. Sizing him up, perhaps? He could see it moving, then crouching lower, as if preparing to pounce. His light caught the movement of leathery gray skin, furless. A rabid coyote? With mange? The enormity of the thing proved it was no coyote. This was the size of a mountain lion, possibly larger. Curtis began to back away, slowly, the way he came, doing his best to keep his breath calm, his nerves in check. If he panicked, the creature in him would be off to the races. "Easy," he muttered. The thing must have cocked its head to the side at the sound of his voice, by the way its eyes were now positioned. Correcting itself, it took a few steps closer. It was still not out of the wooded area, but it was near the tree line. Soon enough, Curtis would catch a full glimpse of the thing. He put his hands up. "Whoa, come on now. Easy." "It's not a horse, you idiot. Run! Turn and run as fast as you can." He bolted. He leapt over a bed of cactus, his boots making a thud as he planted his feet. He didn't look back, just kept running, running, running for his life. Halfway there. "Don't turn your head. Don't look back. Don't do it." He was breathing hard, his lungs already burning. Up ahead, he could make out the red lights of the chicken coop. To the left of the coop was his truck. The rifle. He had to know how close the creature was to him. Then again, he'd never actually heard the sound of anything but his own labored breathing and footsteps as he ran. "Don't look." Too late. He turned his head in time to see nothing but the pasture and the ridge beyond. Then he was sprawling. The left side of his body took most of the trauma. His left ankle throbbed. Sticking from his boot and jeans all the way up his thigh, cactus spines poked out. He screamed when he tried to move. Then he heard it. The sound of legs moving impossibly fast across the rocky ground, gaining speed, cutting the distance in mere seconds. A raspy bellow filled the night. Not a hiss, not quite a howl, but not far off from either. Curtis shot up despite the pain. He hobbled along, past the goat pen, the barn, the chicken coop, the tool shed. He ran past the truck, his thoughts only on Graham. If he took the chance to try and make it to the truck, it'd be a death sentence. It roared again, louder this time. He didn't shine the light, but he could see it in his peripherals, moving past the goat pen, sending the herd into a frenzy. The chickens caught on quickly, flapping their wings in desperation, as if a snake had entered through the wire mesh. Reaching the screen door, he shut it and fumbled with the latch until it was hooked on just right. He shut the main door and locked it, too. Limping toward the living room, he walked in front of Graham's tiny, snoring figure in the rocking chair and into his room. Once inside, he grabbed the Remington .44 Special from the top dresser drawer and made his way back to the kitchen window. Tears were streaming down his face from the pain. He mopped them up with a shirt sleeve along with a streak of blood from a cut on his temple. He turned on the outside lights. Slowly he opened both doors, holding the pistol out in front of him. Once outside, he brought his other hand to the pistol to control his shaking. Curtis checked on the goats first. Besides a few fields of maize and hay, they were his main income. Satisfied they were alive, if not shaken by the experience, like him, he moved on to the chicken coop. From the state of the small structure, he knew what he'd find. Blood and feathers littered the ground. The wire mesh had not been bitten through, but pulled away from the wooden frame of the coop. Little bodies lay scattered about, all dead, some shriveled with their blood drained, while some were in pieces. "How'd you fall again?" Graham pushed her walker over to him that morning, while Curtis nursed his ankle in a bowl of ice on the kitchen floor. He'd plucked all the cactus spines he could find, but still felt a prickle or two whenever he moved. "Coons got to the chickens last night. When I tried to chase 'em off, I twisted my ankle." "And busted your arse by the look of things." "Yeah, that too." Graham fixed them a full English breakfast, his favorite. Black pudding, baked beans, mushrooms, tomatoes, bacon, sausages, toast with butter, and hash browns. Clutching his abdomen after he finished, he burped, excused himself, and took a drink of black coffee. "Gonna be staying up tonight," he told her. "At least until I get the bath," he corrected himself. "The coons." "You do what you need to, love. I've got several dates with the Duke. He's on all weekend." He studied her then. Bags under her eyes alerted him. "You sleep all right?" "Nightmares." "From back in London?" As a young woman, she'd been a nurse in London during the Blitz, bombs dropping down from the Nazis for 8 months. She'd had Curtis's mother during a bomb raid. "No, something recently, I think. A big wolf, or cat, or something of the sort, had those goats you found in its jaws. Only it held them. With arms, it held them tight. Red eyes looked into mine. When it was done, it walked away on all fours, into the night. Didn't run. Walked calmly, as you or I when it's time to head off to bed after a big meal." His mouth slightly agape, Curtis leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "It was a nightmare, love. Not a thing to worry about. Now, when are we going to town again?" "Town? What for?" "To pick up my dress for the gala, of course. You promised to take me, Colton Gray. Don't think I've forgotten. I've got the memory of a bloody elephant." The gala had been 20 years ago when Curtis was 13. His grandfather, Colton, hadn't fulfilled his promise, dying of a heart attack a week before. "Right. Well, you better get some beauty sleep then." She beamed. "Oh, yes, well, not a horrible idea, for the nightmares and all. A nap may be the thing I need." As Graham got up from her seat, Curtis got up from his and walked outside. Graham hadn't seen it, but he'd holstered the revolver in a gun belt that had belonged to his grandfather. He put a hand on the butt of the weapon as he made a sweep of the area. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just a bunch of dead chickens killed by a monster on the loose. He discovered old tracks leading around the house, the same from around the chicken coop. His eyes grew wide at the sheer size. They rivaled the length and width of a mature grizzly, only these had 3 extra long claws sprouting from each track. The sight filled him with a sense of foreboding. He found multiple tracks imprinted on one another outside his bedroom window, and more so outside of Graham's window. It had been watching them, stalking them from the hills, from the woods, crouched down in the pasture as he worked, no doubt. The thought irked him down to his core. Dread turned to anger as he recognized the threat this creature posed, not just to him, not just to his animals, but to Graham. After all, predators went after the weakest members of a herd first. Curtis opened the goat pen and herded them into the barn. All but one. The fattest of the bunch, he tethered to an outside post of the goat pen. It made its discontent. But Curtis had a plan, and it didn't end with this goat ending up like its brethren. Calling up Juan, he told him what had taken place the night before. Juan listened in silence. Then he asked for his friend's help for what he had planned. 2 guns were better than 1. Juan hung up the phone without an answer. It would come at dark, as it had the past 2 nights. As the sun began to set, the sky transformed into a canvas of vibrant hues, hosting a mixture of oranges, blues, and purples over the verdurous pasture below. It was a picture Curtis had seen around the world, in Germany after he joined the military, in Grenada, cutting lumber in Northern California, working the oil fields in Montana, then in West Texas, and here, home. He looked over at Graham, her eyes once again distant, sparkling against the sunset. She hadn't touched her dinner. She'd drifted to another time. Which Graham sat before him now? The hard-headed grandmother he'd known as a boy? The frail old woman she had become? The turbulent teenager jumping on the back of foreign soldiers' motorcycles? Or the little girl with dreams of one day becoming an actress? Outside, the goat continued to vent its frustration. It strode back and forth on the leather cord. 1 shot. That's all Curtis needed. Then it'd be over. After, he'd call the papers to come and take photographs. Maybe they'd interview him. Maybe he'd make them pay for the privilege. It wasn't every day that a creature from myth was proved to exist. Nevertheless, he had a farm to run, animals to feed. He'd need to buy chickens, fix the coop, not to mention the goats he'd lost already. He eyed the poor bastard, still walking to and fro, clanging its horns against the metal bars of the pen as it went. Hang in there. Darkness was falling quickly now. The world grew dimmer as the sun began to fade behind a backdrop of endless hills. Graham? She swiveled her head slowly toward him. Yes, love? Why don't you turn in? You look like you could use the extra rest. She mumbled. Of course. Swim practice in the morning. Come on, Graham. Helping her from her chair, Curtis led her to her bedroom. She'd been getting worse. Watching the woman who'd been a mother to him climb into the white sheets, tears welled in his eyes as the realization dawned on him that he might not be the right one to care for her. One day soon, on a blistering hot summer day, she'd go wandering into the pasture, barefoot, lost, looking for her husband, looking for the boy Curtis had once been. Then he would find her there, on the ground in a bed of cactus. Maybe Cleve had been right after all. The phone rang. Hoping Juan had changed his mind, he breathed a sigh of dissatisfaction when he heard Mo Pruitt's voice on the other end of the line. We're coming for you, Curtis Gray. Best believe it. We're coming for you. What the hell are you going on about, Mo? I don't have time for you and your brother's shit right now. They're dead, Mo screamed. The goats, cows, chickens, our dogs. When we got home from the bar, they was scattered about in pieces. And I know it was you. You think you can intimidate us, drive us out? Mo, you always hated us, you and your uncle both. So we're coming for you for what you done. Ethan and I are going to come across the pasture now, and we're going to make you hurt till you can't no more. Listen to me. Curtis tried desperately to get the hot-headed drunk to listen. Do not come across the pasture tonight. Take your truck for all I care, but don't. The other end of the line went static. Curtis slammed the receiver down on the rotary phone switch hook with a loud ding. Closing the door gently behind him, he went to retrieve his rifle. He peered through the scope, when he was on the back porch steps, at the pasture and the surrounding woodland and fields of maize. A small herd of deer munched away in one of the maize fields. A half-dozen grackles flew from the field and into a cluster of trees for the night. Other than that, the world appeared peaceful, quiet. Not for long. Curtis sat in the bed of his truck, a sandbag resting on top of the left side panel for balance when the time came to take his shot. The forestock of the rifle rested on the sandbag. The barrel pointed to the sky as he surveyed the farm. He kept the back porch lights on. It wasn't as if the beast had been deterred by them at night anyhow. If it had gorged on the Pruitt's livestock, maybe it wouldn't show. It was certainly a possibility, but the way it torn up his chickens, most of them hadn't been bled dry. This was a creature with carnal pleasures that extended beyond hunger. Like most large predators, it must have a territory expanding dozens, if not hundreds of miles. How long would it stay around him and the Pruitt's farms? Was it sated? Had it moved on? Only time would tell. "Come on out," he whispered. He was beginning to get drowsy, sitting there, his elbows leaning against the side panel. He concentrated on the throbbing pain stemming from his ankle to keep him awake, alert. Suddenly, the goat began to rise. It jerked its head toward the pasture. Voices. Oh, shit! Through his scope, he spotted Mo and Ethan Pruitt trudging across the pasture. It was dark, but he could easily pick out their obese forms. Each carried a rifle. They were trespassing. With guns in their hands, it wouldn't be difficult to take them both out now and be justified in doing so. But Curtis wasn't the sort. He talked them down as he had before. When he came between them and beating Cleve to a pulp, he'd show them the tracks. Together, they'd stand a better chance at drawing in or hunting the creature. At the very least, they could drive it away. He could make them see reason. At least, he hoped. He saw it before they did. It ran from the same clump of trees it had observed him from the night before. It ran on all fours, galloping with such speed there'd be no squeezing off a shot and hoping to hit his target. Still, he put his eye to the scope. The Pruitts screamed as they caught sight of the goat killer. Each fired off a shot, muzzles flashing in the night as the creature drew near. The chupacabra collided with Mo as his younger brother fired another round. It roared. The force of being barreled into sent Mo Pruitt sprawling across the ground, over cactus and stone. To his credit, Mo immediately stood up and searched for his rifle on the ground. Before Ethan could aim the rifle, the creature was up on two legs, arched over like a hunchback. Bat-like ears twitched like insectoid antennas. Long, spiky hackles raised high on shoulders and back of gray muscle as it took a swipe. Dark claws slashed across Ethan's face and throat. He fell to the ground screaming. 2 pieces of a broken rifle were in Mo's hands. He threw it at the creature, mangling his younger brother to bloody shreds. But it didn't seem to notice. It kept tearing, jerking its head away with flesh hanging from its jaws, its 2 bulbous red eyes locked on its kill. Mo turned to run toward Curtis's farm. Curtis fired. The bullet ricocheted off a stone. He fired again, the second shot missing its mark again as the chupacabra continued to feast. It was too far away, the gales of wind too strong to make a clean shot from that distance. He took 3 more shots for good measure. When Mo approached the truck, he collapsed to the ground. Grief covered his exhausted face as Curtis helped him to his feet. His wounds were like his own, scrapes marking his forearms with streaks of blood. The worst he could see was blood coming from the top of his head, trickling over one ear and down the side of his face and neck. Mo collapsed again. The man was concussed. It was a damn miracle he'd made it to the farm. Adrenaline and fear had saved him for now. Curtis hoisted Mo up, grunting from the man's weight. "Get up, you big bastard!" He looked in the direction of killing ground, finding nothing but a mutilated corpse. Shit! He helped Mo along toward the house, his rifle slung across one shoulder, up the steps and to the door. The pain in his ankle was excruciating from supporting a man almost twice his weight. "Ethan!" Mo wailed, his eyes fluttering as he tried to stay conscious. "Ethan!" "Stay here," Curtis said as he plopped Mo onto the couch. "Don't come outside." Mo said nothing as his eyes shut. Curtis looked through the rifle scope after he exited the house once again. He looked next to the barn. The goat was still there, though it was tugging at the tether, frantically trying to escape. It knew what was nearby, what was coming. Stepping off the porch, Curtis made his way back to the truck to get the ammo box. He had to reload. After 5 shots, his rifle was spent. From behind, he never heard the creature climb the roof of the house. It jumped from the porch roof as Curtis yelled with shock. He unslung the rifle, gripping it like a club, determined not to go out without a fight. It inched forward. Unblinking eyes of crimson glowed spectacularly as it studied its prey. It made a clicking noise, a sort of tick-tick-tick in rapid succession. A hole oozed dark fluid from his shoulder. Its left arm hung slack. It bent its legs to spring. The pistol! Unused to wearing the gun belt, Curtis remembered that he had more than an empty rifle. He dropped the rifle, the revolver trading places in his grasp. He fired one round as the chupacabra lurched forward. The creature swiped its working arm forward, sending the revolver flying toward the barn. Curtis immediately felt a burning sensation coming from his right hand. The pinky and ring finger were missing. A hole appeared through one of the creature's ears. He'd missed the mark, all but sealing his fate. Curtis turned to run, but claws grabbed his left leg. As he fell, the creature snapped his leg to one side. He screamed, feeling the tendons and cartilage in his knee tear. It dragged him toward the barn and flung him the rest of the way. His body hit the outside of the barn violently. Its eyes met the goat tethered to the post. Turning its chin to the sky, it sniffed. Fat pits for nostrils flared open and shut. It turned, its attention focused on the barn doors. It was going after all of them. Curtis looked around wildly for the pistol, but found nothing but dirt and blood. He reached out toward the once mythical creature with his bleeding hand. "No," he pleaded breathlessly. "Please, no." It yanked the barn doors off their hinges and bellowed. The goats inside scrambled for the back of the barn. They climbed over one another as they fled to nowhere. The high-pitched bleats seemed to excite the creature, its hackles turning erect on the top of its naked spine. It looked down on Curtis then, its inhuman gaze one of fury, of hate. Then it turned back to the panicked herd in the barn. The shotgun blast roared. It hit the creature in the back, coming out of its right side. Black blood splattered the ground in front of it. "Come out of there, you bloody sod!" Graham stood there in a white cotton nightie, her usual wispy gray hair tied in a bun waving in the breeze. She ejected the 2 empty shells and loaded 2 more. "You all right, love?" Graham asked calmly. "Graham," Curtis said with a cough. "Kill it!" The chupacabra came at her, screeching as it turned from the pain. Its legs buckled beneath it, and it fell. Crawling, it aimed not toward Graham, but him. Graham slowly made her way between Curtis and the monster, a hard look on her face. One clawed hand reached out to swipe at the old woman, but she was too far from its reach. Jaws snapped with a relentless ferocity. To her credit, Graham stood her ground against the horror before her. With a great effort, she raised the shotgun up once more, aiming the end of the gun at the creature's snarling maw. "You hurt my grandson," she said coldly. She fired both barrels of the shotgun, exploding the monster's head in spectacular fashion, sending dark fluid and gore shooting backwards. "Time to get up, love." Painfully, Curtis got to his feet. Using the shotgun as a crutch, he made his way over to the goat tethered to the post and patted it on the head. Undoing the cord, Curtis led the goat and the rest of the frightened herd from the barn back into the pen. He limped over to Graham, who stood waiting by the back porch, her eyes no longer distant, but present and concerned. "I'm sorry, Graham," he said, beginning to choke up. "I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be taking care of you, not the other way around." He took his grandmother in his arms and held her tight, not knowing the next time he would see the real her, the real Graham. "We take care of each other. I'm always here for you, Curtis. Always."
That was C.W. Stevenson's Goatsucker, as read by Charles Conover. Charles Conover is a retired business professional who enjoys telling many types of stories. He's presented in front of corporate VPs and read stories to his children and grandchildren. Charles has been a creative storyteller all his life, from stick figure comic books, taped radio plays, to writing short stories. Thank you, Charles. Well, children of the night, the hour is late and we've run out of tales to tell. For now. Tales to Terrify is made possible by the tremendous generosity of our supporters on Patreon and PayPal. Incredible fans like Lestle Baxter, Amanda Carrillo, Amanda Gottfried, and Orion D. Hegre, whose generous support keeps these lights on and flickering ominously. If you're not a supporter, head over to patreon.com/Tales to Terrify. You'll find all kinds of perks, like ad-free episodes, bonus content, and one-of-a-kind collectibles. Every dollar goes back into this show, and we appreciate your support so much. Want another way to support the show that doesn't cost you a cent? Head over to Podchaser, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts and drop us a 5-star review. You'll not only put an unnaturally wide smile on our faces, but help new listeners discover our terrifying tales, too. You can show your love of the show out in the world with some Tales to Terrify merch. TalesToTerrify.com/merch will take you to our TeePublic store, where we've got a great collection of creepy custom and curated designs. Tales to Terrify is produced by Seth Williams, Meredith Morgenstern, Andrew Gibson, Crystal Hammond, Spencer Disparty, and myself, Drew Sebastini, with original theme by Nebulous Entertainment. Tales to Terrify is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Join us again next week as we step beyond the veil with more Tales to Terrify.